Now shrugging off his rags, the wiliest fighter of the islands leaped and stood on the broad door-sill, his own bow in his hand. He poured out at his feet a rain of arrows from the quiver and spoke to the crowd. "So much for that. Your clean-cut game is over. Now watch me hit a target that no man has hit before, if I can make this shot. Help me, Apollo." He drew to his fist the cruel head of an arrow for Antinous, just as the young man leaned to lift his beautiful drinking cup, embossed, two-handled, golden. The cup was in his fingers, the wine was even at his lips, and did he dream of death? How could he? In that revelry amid his throng of friends, who would imagine a single foe, though a strong foe indeed, could dare to bring death's pain on him and darkness on his eyes? Odysseus's arrow hit him under the chin and punched up to the feathers through his throat. Backward and down he went, letting the wine cup fall from his shocked hand. Like pipes, his nostrils jetted crimson runnels, a river of mortal red, and one last kick upset his table, knocking the bread and meat to soak in dusty blood. Now, as they craned to see their champion where he lay, the suitors jostled in uproar down the hall, everyone on his feet. Wildly they turned and scanned the walls in the long room for arms, but not a shield, not a good ashen spear was there for a man to take and throw. All they could do was yell in outrage at Odysseus. "Foul! To shoot at a man! That was your last shot! Your own throat will be slit for this! Our finest lad is down! You killed the best on Ithaca! Buzzards will tear your eyes out." For they imagined as they wished that it was a wild shot, an unintended killing. Fools, not to comprehend they were already in the grip of death. But glaring under his brows, Odysseus answered, "You yellow dogs, you thought I'd never make it home from the land of Troy. You took my house to plunder, twisted my maids to serve your beds. You dared bid for my wife while I was still alive. Contempt was all you had for the gods who rule wide heaven, contempt for what men say of you hereafter. Your last hour has come. You die in blood." As they all took this in, sickly green fear pulled at their entrails, and their eyes flickered, looking for some hatch or hideaway from death. Eurymachus alone could speak. He said, "If you are Odysseus of Ithaca come back, all that you say these men have done is true. Rash actions, many here, more than in the countryside. But here he lies, the man who caused them all. Antinous was the ringleader. He whipped us on to do these things. He cared less for a marriage than for the power Cronion has denied him as king of Ithaca. For that he tried to trap your son and would have killed him. He is dead now and has his portion. Spare your own people. As for ourselves, we'll make restitution of wine and meat consumed, and add, each one, a tithe of 20 oxen, with gifts of bronze and gold to warm your heart. Meanwhile, we cannot blame you for your anger." Odysseus glowered under his black brows and said, "Not for the whole treasure of your fathers, all you enjoy, lands, flocks, or any gold put up by others, would I hold my hand. There will be killing till the score is paid. You forced yourselves upon this house. Fight your way out, or run for it if you think you'll escape death. I doubt one man of you skins by." They felt their knees fail, and their hearts, but heard Eurymachus for the last time rallying them. "Friends," he said, "the man is implacable. Now that he's got his hands on bow and quiver, he'll shoot from the big door stone there until he kills us to the last man. Fight, I say. Let's remember the joy of it. Swords out. Hold up your tables to deflect his arrows. After me, everyone. Rush him where he stands. If we can budge him from the door, if we can pass into the town, we'll call out men to chase him. This fellow with his bow will shoot no more." He drew his own sword as he spoke, a broadsword of fine bronze, honed like a razor on either edge. Then, crying hoarse and loud, he hurled himself at Odysseus. But the kingly man let fly an arrow at that instant, and the quivering feathered butt sprang to the nipple of his breast as the barb stuck in his liver. The bright broadsword clanged down. He lurched and fell aside, pitching across his table. His cup, his bread and meat, were spilt and scattered far and wide, and his head slammed on the ground. Revulsion, anguish in his heart, with both feet kicking out, he downed his chair while the shrouding wave of mist closed on his eyes. Amphinomus now came running at Odysseus, broadsword naked in his hand. He thought to make the great soldier give way at the door. But with a spear throw from behind, Telemachus hit him between the shoulders, and the lance head drove clear through his chest. He left his feet and fell forward, thudding, forehead against the ground. Telemachus swerved around him, leaving the long dark spear planted in Amphinomus. If he paused to yank it out, someone might jump him from behind or cut him down with a sword at the moment he bent over. So he ran from the tables to his father's side and halted, panting, saying, "Father, let me bring you a shield and spear, a pair of spears, a helmet. I can arm on the run myself. I'll give outfits to Eumaeus and this cowherd. Better to have equipment." Said Odysseus, "Run then, while I hold them off with arrows as long as the arrows last. When all are gone, if I'm alone, they can dislodge me." Quick upon his father's word, Telemachus ran to the room where spears and armor lay. He caught up 4 light shields, 4 pairs of spears, 4 helms of war, high-plumed with flowing manes, and ran back, loaded down, to his father's side. He was the first to pull a helmet on and slide his bare arm in a buckler strap. The servants armed themselves, and all 3 took their stand beside the master of battle. While he had arrows, he aimed and shot, and every shot brought down one of his huddling enemies. But when all barbs had flown from the bowman's fist, he leaned his bow in the bright entryway beside the door, and armed, a 4-ply shield hard on his shoulder, and a crested helm, horse-tailed, nodding stormy upon his head, then took his tough and bronze-shod spears. Odysseus and Telemachus, along with their 2 allies, cut down all the suitors. Athena also makes an appearance, rallying their spirits and ensuring that none of her favorites is injured. Finally, the great hall is quiet. In blood and dust, he saw that crowd all fallen, many and many slain. Think of a catch that fishermen haul into a half-moon bay in a fine meshed net from the whitecaps of the sea. How all are poured out on the sand in throes for the salt sea, twitching their cold lives away in Helios's fiery air. So lay the suitors, heaped on one another. The trunk of the olive tree. Penelope's old nurse hurries upstairs to tell her mistress that Odysseus has returned and that all the suitors are dead. Penelope is amazed, but refuses to admit that the stranger could be her husband. Instead, she believes that he must be a god. The old nurse sighed. "How queer the way you talk. Here he is, large as life, by his own fire, and you deny he ever will get home. Child, you always were mistrustful, but there is one sure mark that I can tell you. That scar, left by the boar's tusk long ago. I recognized it when I bathed his feet, and would have told you, but he stopped my mouth, forbade me in his craftiness. Come down, I stake my life on it. He's here. Let me die in agony if I lie." Penelope said, "Nurse dear, though you have your wits about you, still it is hard not to be taken in by the immortals. Let us join my son, though, and see the dead and that strange one who killed them." She turned then to descend the stair, her heart in tumult. Had she better keep her distance and question him, her husband? Should she run up to him, take his hands, kiss him now? Crossing the door-sill, she sat down at once in firelight against the nearest wall, across the room from the Lord Odysseus. There, leaning against a pillar, sat the man, and never lifted up his eyes, but only waited for what his wife would say when she had seen him. And she, for a long time, sat deathly still in wonderment, for sometimes as she gazed, she found him, yes, clearly, like her husband, but sometimes blood and rags were all she saw. Telemachus's voice came to her ears. "Mother, cruel mother, do you feel nothing, drawing yourself apart this way from father? Will you not sit with him and talk and question him? What other woman could remain so cold? Who shuns her lord, and he come back to her from wars and wandering after 20 years? Your heart is hard as flint, and never changes. Penelope answered, I am stunned, child. I cannot speak to him. I cannot question him. I cannot keep my eyes upon his face. If really he is Odysseus, truly home, beyond all doubt we two shall know each other better than you or anyone. There are secret signs we know, we two. A smile came now to the lips of the patient hero Odysseus, who turned to Telemachus and said, Peace, let your mother test me at her leisure. Before long she will see and know me best. These tatters, dirt, all that I'm caked with now, make her look hard at me and doubt me still. As to this massacre, we must see the end. Whoever kills one citizen, you know, and has no force of armed men at his back, had better take himself abroad by night and leave his kin. Well, we cut down the flower of Ithaca, the mainstay of the town. Consider that. Telemachus replied respectfully, Dear father, enough that you yourself study the danger, foresighted in combat as you are. They say you have no rival. We three stand ready to follow you and fight. I say for what our strength avails, we have the courage. And the great tactician Odysseus answered, Good. Here is our best maneuver as I see it. Bathe, you three, and put fresh clothing on. Order the women to adorn themselves, and let our admirable harper choose a tune for dancing, some light-hearted air, and strum it. Anyone going by, or any neighbor, will think it is a wedding feast he hears. These deaths must not be cried about the town till we can slip away to our own woods. We'll see what weapon then Zeus puts into our hands. They listened attentively, and did his bidding, bathed and dressed afresh, and all the maids adorned themselves. Then Phemius the harper took his polished shell and plucked the strings, moving the company to desire for singing, for the sway and beat of dancing, until they made the manor hall resound with gaiety of men and grace of women. Anyone passing on the road would say, Married at last, I see, the queen so many courted. Sly, cattish wife, she would not keep, not she, the lord's estate until he came. So travelers' thoughts might run, but no one guessed the truth. Great-hearted Odysseus, home at last, was being bathed now by Eurynome, and rubbed with golden oil, and clothed again in a fresh tunic and a cloak. Athena lent him beauty, head to foot. She made him taller, and massive too, with crisping hair and curls like petals of wild hyacinth, but all red golden. Think of gold infused on silver by a craftsman, whose fine art Hephaestus taught him, or Athena, one whose work moves to delight. Just so she lavished beauty over Odysseus's head and shoulders. He sat then in the same chair by the pillar, facing his silent wife, and said, Strange woman, the immortals of Olympus made you hard, harder than any. Who else in the world would keep aloof as you do from her husband if he returned to her from years of trouble, cast on his own land in the 20th year? Nurse, make up a bed for me to sleep on. Her heart is iron in her breast. Penelope spoke to Odysseus now. She said, Strange man, if man you are, this is no pride on my part, nor scorn for you. Not even wonder merely. I know so well how he appeared boarding the ship for Troy. But all the same, make up his bed for him, Euryclea. Place it outside the bedchamber my lord built with his own hands. Pile the big bed with fleeces, rugs, and sheets of purest linen. With this she tried him to the breaking point, and he turned on her in a flash, raging, Woman, by heaven you've stung me now! Who dared to move my bed? No builder had the skill for that, unless a god came down to turn the trick. No mortal in his best days could budge it with a crowbar. There is our pact and pledge, our secret sign, built into that bed, my handiwork and no one else's. An old trunk of olive grew like a pillar on the building plot, and I laid out our bedroom round that tree, lined up the stone walls, built the walls and roof, gave it a doorway and smooth-fitting doors. Then I lopped off the silvery leaves and branches, hewed and shaped that stump from the roots up into a bedpost. drilled it, let it serve as model for the rest. I planed them all, inlaid them all with silver, gold, and ivory, and stretched a bed between. A pliant web of ox-hide thongs dyed crimson. There's our